Hello, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. Hope you had a wonderful weekend and are gearing up for St. Patrick's Day. But welcome to the network that is the #1 political source for all the events right here in America. Your live desk, your go-to rally network right here on the right side of history as we await President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance holding a signing right there at the White House at the 3:30 mark, 1 hour from now. In the meantime, we have Gene Valentino right outside of Pensacola, Florida. How are you, my friend? So great to see you and have you on the show. So much going on. We're 16 days into this Iranian conflict. What's some of your take in this 4D chess, and where are the president's next moves?
Well, a lot of bluster when they talk about inflation and changes in the oil prices, Rob. We may see a delta of 0.3, 0.3% increase in inflation, spiked almost temporarily based on the mood swing of what you're hearing in the Straits of Hormuz. Now let's compare that to 4 years ago under Biden, when you saw a 7% jump in inflation from something around 2% up to 9%. It was absolutely outrageous at the time. Everyone's trying to make more of an issue of a war that's been an unprecedented management of a war in the last 13, 14 days, as compared to 4 years under the Biden administration. Absolutely supercilious, hyperactive. I refer to it as a hyperactive chihuahua getting neurotic at every turn. We are overreacting to conditions in this war, and it's including the way it's viewed in the marketplace.
Yes, and dive into that for me because you have such a good business background. Are we seeing something right now with the price going up in gas because the price gouging perhaps from these companies, or do we have to be concerned that 1/5 of the world's oil coming out of that strait and therefore temporarily allowing it to rise as we're seeing it?
No more than the tariffs proved to be an impact, Rob, on the economy. The tariffs were used, I'm not changing the subject, come to your answer this way. The tariffs were used to create policy and position of the United States government with friends and foe abroad. And what happened was, it worked. There was no erratic change in the economy in the United States, but they're paying more to support this war we're now in, not us, to Donald Trump's benefit. The issue that is directly related to your question, the tariffs are used as policy tools and did not bump the economy. Oh, you might have seen a small little change for a day or two on Wall Street, but that was a hyperactive response from my hyperactive reactionaries in Wall Street. It does not reflect reality. It certainly didn't reflect AI, biotech, telecommunications, web services, platforms. It didn't affect things that you would think were vital to our infrastructure on a national level.
So interesting. And I had the privilege 1 year ago yesterday asking President Trump about the new tariff policy. And he said, hey, Australia can go with us. At the time, they were going against us. But as the president put it, China made a lot of money doing the exact same thing with tariffs. To your point, Gene, how does this 4D chess all interact with Russia and Ukraine, the Chinese Communist Party? We know President Trump has a big trip over there with the premier, Mr. Xi, come April. And I think President Trump really has a lot in his arsenal to unpack and negotiate with the Chinese counterparts.
Yes, indeed. Well stated. You know, it was only 13, 14 days ago, Donald Trump didn't have the control he has now over the world oil. A significant impact in the oil coming out of Iran, which is supplying China. Oh, by the way, it was only a few weeks prior, we had this country called Venezuela that got stomped on pretty hard by a country that folks laughed at as being impotent, the United States of America. Not so. We have put our thumb on the throat, on the main arteries of oil in this world, Iran and Venezuela. Now, If we could only make them the 51st and 52nd state, what do you think?
Well, Canada might be in the running, and at least then Canada would have the gold medals, not only for hockey, but maybe even baseball in the World Baseball Classic as we're underway.
Yeah, bingo.
Right,
include Cuba.
Oh, exactly. Now, Gene, I did not tell you this before we came on the show, but I was with Brad Raffensperger over the weekend, also Burt Jones and Chris Carr, all three constitutional officers going for that big seat, governor of Georgia, that's highly being watched right now. And really, the southeast region of the United States, all of the governors term limited, including your own Ron DeSantis there in the free sunshine state of Florida. So give us a local lens. But I'm also very interested tomorrow, the next hearing for Maduro and Flores. And I won't call it by its name because they're a bit sue-happy, but that, let's call it domination, was counting certain votes over in Venezuela at times. How does that have an effect on our upcoming midterm elections? What about the Save America Act? Are all of these different factors coming into play right now to really zero in on, oh, this makes a lot of sense. President Donald Trump has been doing it every step of the way, 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, and there's no small coincidence we have so many world leaders, billionaires coming to Florida, Texas, Tennessee in particular. And the reason is because of sound government. Did you know that the budget of the city of New York in the billions, with no revenue source in place to guarantee a balanced budget, that the budget of New York City exceeds the state of Florida? The state of Florida, with no state income tax and incentives in place to promote employers running their own show, to promote them hiring their own people, economic forces prevailing, not government social forces mandating, government saying, here's the rope, go hang yourself or go make $1 billion, but go have a ball, is the way Florida looks at business. Texas and Tennessee, put them in the mix as well. This is the antithesis to the deep state, blue state, sanctuary city states such as New York and the others that are having the problems they're having. More government means restrictive controls that are not manageable. They're not measurable. And there's no quantifying methodology in government to see if the controls you put in place, Rob, are actually generating a benefit. Government has a role. They can incentivize, but they don't have a right to interfere with your economics on supply and demand logic that they don't have the time to follow. And that's why I think we're going to see certain states in the months and years ahead becoming very powerful. I think the stronghold of power in this nation is going to swing from the north, the New England states, New York in particular, to the southern states, and I think that the southeast in particular in general. I think the United States will have a pivot in terms of power and control. You mentioned the SAVE Act. We must make sure that one man equals one vote. I came out of county government, used to be a county commissioner. Yeah, we did the update to the census every 10 years, but that's only to set the districts. We didn't micromanage the alignment of these districts tied to political parties so as to garner control over voting methodology. This is where we get in trouble. And the SAVE Act says, well, before we start to talk about districts, let's make sure that the person voting is legal. How about that for apples? Is the person voting legally qualified to be able to do so? My Italian immigrant grandfather be rolling in his grave right now if he saw what was able to vote. My Irish immigrant grandfather on the other side would be going crazy if he saw us tolerating what we're tolerating as voters. The problem is we need some national control under the Trump administration because, Rob, we can't trust the state-by-state willy-nilly approach in managing elections in this nation. It's part of the problem we had in the first place. And as Trump said in the last election, just overwhelm them at the ballot. Just flood the ballot the polling stations and come in and vote. They did. He won. We need to do it again to save our midterm elections and to make sure Trump has conservative Republican support around him to get these policies through. Hey, if Congress and the judiciary just took a breather and looked in the mirror and left Trump alone for 6 months, how much more would we get done?
No question
The
about
problem
that,
has
Gene.
been, pardon me?
Oh, no question about that. I can relate with my Italian-Irish ancestry myself from Chicagoland, where some people would vote beyond the grave at times, dating back to Cook County, the county of my birth. So I can relate to that very true statement you're making. And before we let you go, Gene, do we see any Gene Valentino in the future, a county commissioner, but also a former candidate for Congress, doing such amazing work on your own show, but also with your business background? We need more common sense like Gene Valentino there in Washington, D.C.
I'd be honored to serve. Not directly on the horizon. I'd like to consider what the options are out there, but I think it's important that whoever takes this job in this, I'm in Congressional District number 1 in Florida, which is the Panhandle of Florida, formerly Matt Gaetz's district before he jumped out. I lost the election against 9 other Republicans in a special election, and basically it was a last-minute thing, about 3 months of campaigning. You really couldn't do much. But Donald Trump didn't know me. Wish he had, but he didn't know me. I'd look forward to an invitation or a chance to say hello to him sometime, because I think his policies are my policies are his policies. He is winning by focusing on the greed of us in an economy to make money. He talks in terms of a capitalistic bent, which has succeeded. Socialism, socialistic states, Marxism, communism, these folks don't worry about an economy. They worry about a political party protecting their own self-interest and power and control. A constitutional republic, what you and I live in, what's left of it here in the United States, gives the power to we the people. And that's where I came up the name with my podcast, The Grassroots Truthcast. It's because it's about you and me and that guy up there who is the president, who works for us, and the congressman and the senator and everyone else in between. We've got to make sure they're empowered to get good, sound policies through in the midterm election, which hopefully will yield to a change in America in the decades ahead.
Gene Valentino, GOP strategist from the beautiful Pensacola, Florida, the free sunshine state. Come back and see us soon, sir, on the right side of history, and you have yourself a great St. Patrick's Day and a great St. Joseph's Day. Sometimes it's forgotten later on in the week.
You too, brother.
Take care. And as we continue to cover the latest from the Trump White House, Gene's words really do ring true this week, as today, March 16th, we're celebrating none other than the 4th president of the United States, James Madison. A presidential message from President Trump's office at the White House today on this very celebration. Today we celebrate the birthday of President James Madison, the father of our Constitution and intellectual architect of the American founding, whose wisdom and commitment to the common good breathed life into our republic 250 years ago. As I continue celebrating this today, we're grateful for our sponsors on the right side of history, especially you, the American people who donate and support this viewer-supported channel right here at RSBN, rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can also send a check or money order into 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Again, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for supporting us here on the right side of history. Heck, you can jump into that new Rumble wallet, wallet.rumble.com, and help support us that way as well. So kind of a 2-for-1 at the network this week. And also mypillow.com /RSBN. The mattress and topper sale as low as $99.99 with promo code RSBN. Easy to remember. Call today. Do not delay. It's 800-836-7566 for all of the best options for Made in America right up in the great state of Minnesota. It's Mike Lindell. He's running for governor of Minnesota as well. So these midterms jam-packed with lots of fun for MAGA world and, you know, some of those who still have their heads in the sand. Perhaps we can convince them to come to the right side of history. But in the meantime, support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network with 2,000 different options at mypillow.com/RSBN. But right now, the mattress and topper sale going super fast. And make sure you get that My Coffee, the My Slippers, the My Pillow 1.0, the 2.0, of course, the Giza Dream Sheets, just fantastic at mypillow.com/RSBN as we are celebrating James Madison's birthday. He is the architect, really, of this country and of the American founding, the father of the Constitution. Born on March 16, 1751, President Trump celebrating today as Madison, born in Port Conway, Virginia. He was deeply devoted to the pursuit of knowledge, and through his intense studies of history, philosophy, and the classics, he nurtured the ideas that would help a young nation toward liberty and self-government. Ultimately, in 1776, elected to the 5th Virginia Convention, where he helped draft the state constitution and the foundational Virginia Declaration of Rights, which would later inspire the opening paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence, of course, penned by his predecessor and dear friend, Thomas Jefferson. Now, as a member of the Second Continental Congress, Madison played a key role in the debates that led to the Philadelphia Constitutional Convention, and when he gathered with other delegates in the sweltering summer of 1787, Madison's depth of study of both classical and Enlightenment texts on the nature and history of Republican governance helped define the contours of the debates that ultimately followed. His proposed government, grounded in the separation of powers, popular representation, and structural accountability, as we see in the three branches, helped shape our Constitution, which so famously in final form begins with the revolutionary sentence that forever changed the world. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, during the ratification debates that ultimately followed, Madison penned 29 essays of the legendary Federalist Papers, in which he laid out and defended the philosophy and the principles laying in the building blocks and at the heart of a new constitutional republic. And he helped ensure ratification of the Constitution at the contentious, rancorous debates that took place. Madison's role in this, defining this new nation and this form of government, did not end there. As a member of the House of Representatives for the first United States Congress, Madison drafted the Bill of Rights to balance the constitutional framework in which he established with a listed center of constitutional order and inalienable rights that came directly from God, our initial Bill of Rights. Now, Madison would go on to serve as Secretary of State under President Jefferson, where he played a key role in bringing about the finalization of the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the new nation. And as the fourth president of the United States, Madison famously defeated the British in the War of 1812 and ushered in a renewal of American sovereignty in the era of good feelings thereafter, helping to define the civic character of the United States of America. Following his presidency, Madison returned home to his beloved Montpelier estate in Virginia, where he remained a titan in American public life for years to come. He served as the rector of the University of Virginia, which he helped to establish and played a decisive role in the resolving of the nullification crisis. At the age of 78, Madison was a representative to the Virginia Constitutional Convention of 1829 and 1830. In his honor, as we celebrate 250 glorious years of American independence, My administration reaffirms the sacred principles that James Madison spent his life defending, including rule of law, by the people, for the people, freedom of religion, and the constitutional rule of law. On what would have been his 275th birthday today, we salute the great James Madison for his role in securing our birthright of liberty. That from the President, Donald Trump, on this day, March 16th, 2026, as we get ready to celebrate 250 years of America this summer. And in the meantime, we can check in on Truth Social and some of what President Trump is saying across the website there and the social media site that is one of the more popular ones out there, with cut number 1 praising Johnny Joey Jones. Thank you to Johnny Jones and all of our great TSA agents who are going to work but not being paid because the radical left Democrats refuse to honor the deal that was approved and voted on in Congress. They want your money to go to border criminals, murderers, foreign drug dealers, and some of the worst people on earth. They don't want it to go to you. Keep fighting for the USA. Go to work. I promise that I will never forget you. And yet another fake news story with cut number 2, as we've seen in the mainstream media. They yet again an intentionally misleading headline by the fake news media about the 5 tanker planes that were supposedly struck down at an airport in Saudi Arabia and of no further use. In actuality, the base was hit a few days ago, but the planes were not struck or destroyed. 4 of the 5 have virtually no damage and are already back in service. 1 had slightly more damage, but will be in the air shortly. None destroyed or close to that, as the fake news said in the headlines. Now, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal in particular, and other low-life papers and media actually want us to lose the war. Now, their terrible reporting is the exact opposite of the actual facts. They are truly sick and demented people and have no idea the damage they cause the United States of America. Fortunately, as proven by a great and conclusive election win in 2024, the people of our country understand what is happening far better than the fake news media that's signed by President Trump in what has been an interesting 16 days here leading up to a gloomy mid-March for most of us across the country. And we are grateful, though, for our great sponsors across the country, including allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Right there you can find code RSBN, that's RSBN10, for 10% off these life-saving medications, from ivermectin to mebendazole, antibiotics, hydrochloroquine, maintenance medications, and much, much more. This includes antivirals to antibiotics, also Tamiflu, still good for this time of year as, gosh, yesterday down in the southeast, 80-plus degree weather from a beautiful weekend, now down to 48 as a high. How does that happen? So good to have these medicines on stock to keep you healthy this time of year. Also, the emergency medical kits that you could take with you on the road. This is the pharmacy that promotes and protects your financial freedom and your freedom of choice, your right to try, most favored nation status, and accessing off-label generics that the pharmacy down the street probably doesn't even prescribe to you and refuses to offer. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN gets rid of the red tape, they get rid of the bureaucracy, and they go right to the consumer with a U.S. licensed doctor on the other end to review your order. Of course, a pharmaceutical note is needed, but no insurance, no hassle, no problem. RSBN 10 is the code for 10% off site-wide. Scan that QR code there now. It's a family and pharmacy that supports your financial freedom. We're grateful for Michael Kunzler and the amazing work they do there out of the free Sunshine State of Florida, supporting this amazing country of ours at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Also, the amazing miracle cream known as angelpaste.com. 10% off with code RSBN. Scan that QR code there now. I was able to give some friends a few gifts from over the weekend. Angel Paste so generous to offer some of the amazing products to try for the people. And let me tell you, that miracle cream, my personal favorite, I use it every single day. Also, the orange option, vitamin C infused, both products non-GMO, no chemicals. They're great patriots, they're Christians, and they want to hire veterans. They prioritize that. As a company out of Spring, Texas, the Lone Star State off of the Gulf of America, it's angelpaste.com, changing the whole beauty line product and skincare outlets out there. And sometimes you go to the store and you see those ones with all of those chemicals, those red dyes, those blue dyes, those things that you do not recognize, not good for your skin to absorb. No, they want you to have the healthy, the right components, and things that will actually make a difference, including the natural facial spray to go paint that town red. Angelpaste.com, 10% off with code RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. As we approach the top of the hour, at 3:30, we will have the president, the vice president at a signing ceremony. Again, expected at 3:30. We have plenty to go over with you in the meantime. But first, we'll take it to a quick commercial break for sponsors here on the right side of history. Do not change that dial. It's Monday, March 16th, 2026, and you are watching Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. As we are awaiting the president and the vice president, stick with us, diving into Truth Social and cut number 3. Many countries, especially those affected by Iran's attempt and the closure of the Hormuz Strait, will be sending warships in conjunction with the United States of America to keep the strait open and safe. We have already destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, but it's easy for them to send a drone or two, drop a mine, or deliver a close-range missile somewhere along or in this waterway. No matter how badly defeated they are, hopefully China, France, Japan, South Korea, the UK, and others that are affected by this artificial constraint will send ships to the area so that the Hormuz Strait will no longer be a threat by a nation that has been totally decapitated. In the meantime, the United States will be bombing the hell out of the shoreline and continually shooting Iranian boats and ships out of the water. One way or the other, we will soon get the Hormuz Strait open, safe, and free. President Donald J. Trump. And I'd like to remind those who might have forgotten, although war is hell, we have a team that is focused on finally stopping the Iranian threat that has gone on for 47 years. Whether it's Beirut, Lebanon, and 283 Marines lost at the hands of terrorists and the proxies, a dozen or so that have been wreaking havoc on American interest since the fall of the Shah in 1979. We've been dealing with these radicals for far too long, including the countless lives that were lost on October 7th of 2023. American lives. This is part of the America First agenda. This is part of Peace Through Strength. And this is the MAGA agenda that was voted into by office. So it is very appropriate that the president uses his Article 2 powers and authority as the commander-in-chief to stop this craziness that has gone on not only in the Middle East but abroad, and ultimately a regime that was committed to destroying the United States of America by any means necessary, including by nuclear materials. And if it wasn't for the ransom paid for by Barack Hussein Obama and his auto pen, then perhaps we would not be here today. As with cut number 4, Iran is truly decimated. Thanks to President Trump, the United States of America has beaten and completely decimated Iran, both militarily, economically, and in every other way. But the countries of the world that receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage, and we will help a lot. The United States will also coordinate with those countries so that everything goes quickly, smoothly, and well. This should have always been a team effort, and now it will be. And we'll bring the world together toward harmony and security and everlasting peace. And that is the goal ultimately with this, with cut number 5. These master manipulators that we have seen in Iran has long been known as just that with their public relations. They are militarily ineffective and weak, but are really good at feeding the very appreciative fake news media false information. Now, artificial intelligence has become another disinformation weapon that Iran uses quite well. They are considering they are being annihilated by the day. They showed phony kamikaze boats shooting at various ships at sea, which looks wonderful, powerful, and vicious, but these boats don't exist. It's a false information campaign to show how tough their already defeated military is. The 5 U.S. refueling planes that were supposedly struck down and badly damaged, according to the Wall Street Journal's false reporting, and others are all in service, with the exception of one, which will soon be flying the skies. Buildings and ships that are shown to be on fire and not. It's fake news generated by artificial intelligence. For instance, Iran, working in close coordination with the fake news media, shows our great USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, one of the largest and most prestigious ships in the world, burning uncontrollably in the ocean. Not only was it not burning, it was not even shot at. Iran knows better than to do that. The story was overwhelmingly and knowingly fake, and in a certain way, you can say that those media outlets that generated it should be brought up on charges for treason, for the dissemination of false information. Now, the fact is Iran is being decimated, and the only battles they win are those that they create through artificial intelligence and are distributed by corrupt media outlets. The radical left-wing press knows this full well, but continues to go forward with false stories and lies. That's why their approval rating is so low. And I can win a presidential election in a landslide, getting only 5% of positive press. They have no credibility, and I'm so thrilled to see Brendan Carr, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, otherwise known as the FCC, looking at the licenses of some of these corrupt and highly unpatriotic news organizations. They get billions of dollars of free American airwaves and use it to perpetuate lies, both in the news and almost all of their shows, including the late night morons who get gigantic salaries for horrible ratings and never get, as I used to say, The Apprentice, fired. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history. I'm very excited about Rumble Wallet. It's your opportunity to tip your favorite content creators and networks, especially on the right side of history, right here at RSBN. We're proud to partner with a company that deserves your praise, Rumble. Free speech meeting that financial freedom right there at the wallet. You might wonder what that is exactly. What is the Rumble Wallet? Well, visit wallet.rumble.com to protect not only your free speech, but your finances. The truth is that people have been canceled from corporate levels to public life. We've seen this problem over the course of the last few years, especially since COVID. And banks and accounts can be turned off digitally with the flick of a switch. So download for free the Rumble Wallet at Google Play and at the App Store, wallet.rumble.com. Rumble initially was created to fight for free speech and that content, the First Amendment online. They now want to protect your financial freedom. And again, we know banks, we know institutions can shut you off completely, the big names out there. But even Rumble cannot break into this unhackable wallet.rumble.com. It truly is the best in the business, as you can collect Tether Gold and Bitcoin, among other crypto favorites, and trade and bet, and also fund your favorite content creators. So it's really very, very well-rounded. Again, wallet.rumble.com. You can also use it for Kalshi.com/RSBN to make your trades and bets in crypto. Scan that QR code there now. The trading is going on live. And actually, you can use pretty much any currency you wish at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Trading on the most important events. And one of those hot topics right now, who will be the 2028 Republican nominee for president? Will we see him in about 25 minutes? J.D. Vance, the 50th Vice President of the United States. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who had a roaring applause, at least from the right side of the aisle, there at the State of the Union when President Trump highlighted his extraordinary work. Do you have someone like a Senator Ted Cruz coming out of the woodwork? Or does the Republican Party go back to its neocon days and nominate someone like a Nikki Haley? We'll see what happens, but make your trading and bet happen now. I hope you're also out there and voting and registered in this midterm, because that's all the lead up to 2028. But Kalshi.com/RSBN, the most fun you'll have there for music, sports, culture, politics, and much, much more. It's the American story, 250 years young, at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Predict and profit on all of those great topics, as we are awaiting President Trump and the Vice President at a signing ceremony expected at the bottom of the hour. We're going through True Social right now and some of the posts that President Trump has put up there in regards to the great one, Mark Levin, cut number 6, a truly great American patriot, somewhat under siege by other people with far less intellect, capability, and love for our country. Mark is tough, strong, brilliant, hence the nickname The Great One, conceived by our MAGA friend, the wonderful Sean Hannity. After years of dealing with Mark in legal, media, and other capacities, Mark would often do Sean's show, speaking as a lawyer, and Sean realized then, as did others, that he was special. Mark Levin was not looking to do television, radio, or anything else, but he was drafted by the very smart people who understood that there are few like him. He is a true conservative and intellect, far smarter than those who criticize him. But above all, he is a man of great wisdom, common sense, who truly loves our country. And when you hear others unfairly attack Mark, remember that they are jealous and angry human beings whose sway is much less than the public understands. And will, now that they know where I stand, rapidly diminish. Other than that, his wonderful wife and family, Mark Levin only cares for one thing. What he wants is the greatness and success for America. Those that speak ill of Mark will quickly fall by the wayside and do the people whose ideas, policies, and footings are not sound. They are not media. I am, and MAGA includes, not allowing Iran, a sick, demented, and violent terrorist regime, to have a nuclear weapon to blow up the United States of America, the Middle East, and ultimately the rest of the world. MAGA is about stopping them cold, and that is exactly what we are doing. God bless our great military, which I have rebuilt since the beginning of my first term to achieve everlasting peace through strength. Make America great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I'd like to thank the president personally for a statement like this, because I've been really reflecting on this when I'm sure, like many of you, have been out there looking on the droves of the internet, and people like Nick Fuentes who like to run their mouth and do not want to even character build or even be part of a team. Even now, Nick is, and he's right to say it, the First Amendment will defend it to the end of time, doesn't want people voting in 2026. Why? Why would you not go out there and either run yourself, get involved in the campaign, fight for the peace through strength agenda against the unholy triumvirate that I belabor on this show of Islamism to communism and secular humanist globalist thought? that those three components are the antithesis of the American Constitution and of liberal philosophy, the true Enlightenment thought process that we celebrate today with great minds like James Madison. Wouldn't you have loved to be a wallflower at Mount Pillier or Monticello in Virginia as Madison and Jefferson would visit each other, especially post-presidencies, where they saw themselves as public servants and really not only the fathers of the Constitution and of this intellectual experiment known as the United States of America, but the two truly responsible for doubling it in size with the Louisiana Purchase. It's something to reflect upon today because there's a lot of hatred out there and concern about what's going on, and rightfully so. But we must remember, as Ronald Reagan spoke of in the 1980s and prior to his presidency, that 11th commandment, that I shall not speak ill of a fellow Republican. And in this MAGA movement, in this big tent approach to making America great again, peace through strength, and the America First agenda as we know it, those words speak more true than ever before. I had the privilege this weekend of being at the Frontline Policy Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, where many constitutional officers and candidates up and down the ballot got to speak with one another, to a religious right crowd involved in the grassroots and the domestic and every single policy, right, left, and center in Georgia as it's become a so-called purple state. But what I saw from that room was charity, a love for country, a love for the Peach State, and moving forward in a Southeast, as you heard from Gene at the beginning of the show, growing exponentially because of business policies that allow you to really chase your American dream. And that's why people are leaving places like California, Illinois, and New York for greener pastures. It's not just the nice weather, but it's that opportunity to make your American journey better than you could have ever imagined. And right now, it's only one movement that's doing that, and it's within the context of Make America Great Again. So find a way to get involved and to speak your piece and at least vote. Unlike, I guess, Nick Fuentes, who will not be voting. So we'll see how that goes for 2026. But the tariffs are working. With cut number 7, President Trump stating that the decision that mattered most to me was tariffs. The court knew where I stood, how badly I wanted this victory for our country, and instead decided to potentially give away trillions of dollars to countries and companies who have been taking advantage of the United States for decades. Our Supreme Court has made these countries very happy. But as the court pointed out, I have the absolute right to change tariffs in another form and have already started to do so. The hundreds of billions of dollars that our adversaries want our country to pay back to others that have disrespected the United States of America until I came along should be marked down in the eyes of the public as just another reason why the United States had been in such major decline. But not anymore, because we have made America great again. And very soon, it will be greater than ever before. I want to thank Justices Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh for their wisdom and courage pertaining to the tariff case and for understanding, in addition to the law, that our unfriendly competitors should not be reimbursed and rewarded for the decades of damage they have caused the United States of America. I will fight hard to make sure that this does not happen. The Democrats on court always stick together, not matter how strong a case is put before them. There is rarely even a minor waiver, but Republicans do not do this. They only openly disrespect the presidents who nominate them to the highest position in the land, a justice of the United States Supreme Court, and go out of their way with bad and wrongful things and intentions to prove how honest, independent, and legitimate they are. The Democrat justices just vote Democrat. They always stick together. Our country was unnecessarily ransacked by the United States Supreme Court, which has become little more than a weaponized and unjust political organization. The sad thing is, they will only get worse. They would not even call out the rigged presidential election of 2020 because they said, I, as President of the United States, did not have standing to challenge it. And now with time, it has been conclusively proven to be stolen. And look what has happened to our wonderful nation by allowing a grossly incompetent man, Sleepy Joe Biden, to be our president. This completely inept and embarrassing court was not what the Supreme Court of the United States was set up by our wonderful founding fathers to be. They are hurting our country and will continue to do so. And all I can do as president is call them out for their bad behavior. This statement about the United States Supreme Court will cause me nothing but problems in the future, but I feel it is my obligation to speak the truth. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. President Donald J. Trump. And this is not the first time in history where the president has criticized the court, but sadly in the last 2 decades, it has become much more politicized, especially since the hearings of Brett Kavanaugh and, of course, Justice Thomas, dating back to Sleepy Autopen when he was chairing the Judiciary Committee back in the Senate in 1991. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history. You can donate, as RSBN is viewer supported, at rsbnetwork.com/donate. There's also the opportunity to send a check or money order in to 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama 36830. It's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama 36830. Again, thank you for supporting us on the right side of history. You can use wallet.rumble.com to get not only the Rumble wallet, but support us right here at the network with your crypto and your Bitcoin and Tether Gold and cold hard cash as well. We will take that here as we are on the right side of history in the new media. Also, thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN. Be sure to take advantage of the mattress and topper sale from the master marketer. As President Trump put it, you know who that is. It's Mike Lindell, candidate for governor of the great state of Minnesota, where all of his amazing products are made right here in America, as low as $99.99 plus free shipping. mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Do not delay. It's 800-836-7566 for 2,000 plus options, including the My Coffee to the MyPillow 1.0, the MyPillow 2.0, among other wonderful Giza Dream Sheets and the My Slippers. Just some of my favorite out there. As if you want a nice, calmer, more relaxing night's rest and sleep and an even better morning, start with mypillow.com/RSBN. As we approach the bottom of the hour, getting closer to seeing the president and the vice president at a signing ceremony. In the meantime, we'll take a quick commercial break for more sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. But in the meantime, don't change that dial. Gear up, grab that popcorn, and get ready for the president and the vice president.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
And welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network as we prepare to see the president and the vice president moments away from now at a signing ceremony. ABC News, among other reports, sharing the names, the ages, and ranks of those you may have heard of over the last several hours and days. The Pentagon identifying the 6 service members killed when a U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq on Thursday. 3 of those Air Force airmen were assigned to the 121st Air Refueling Wing at Rickenbacker Air Force National Guard Base in Columbus, Ohio. It's Captain Seth R. Koval, 38 of Mooresville, Indiana, Captain Curtis J. Angst, 30 of Wilmington, Ohio, Tech Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons, 28 of Columbus, Ohio. The other 3 airmen were assigned to the 6th Air Refueling Wing of MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. Major John A. Klillner, 33 of Auburn, Alabama, which hits home here in the loveliest village on the plains. Of course, Captain Ariana G. Savino, 31 of Covington, Washington, and Tech Sergeant Ashley B. Pruitt, 34 of Bardstown, Kentucky. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. That John 15:13 verse we know all too well at times, but it's young people like them, young millennials, just my age or a few years younger, with spouses, with children, who will not be seeing them again until they are reunited in heaven. And our thoughts and prayers with all of those family members of these selfless people who put on that uniform. It's a remarkable thing to think about. So think about them every day as we engage in this conflict with the Iranian regime to ultimately bring freedom, God willing, to the Iranian people and perhaps a constitutional republic, as friends and experts have been on this show to detail how that might happen in what's been a very recent conflict in the Middle East. But with cut number 8, we go back to Truth Social and Michael Watley, as President Trump endorsing him for that run in the United States Senate in the Tar Heel state. Michael Watley is so great, running against a really bad former governor who set murderers free to kill again, was grossly incompetent on the big hurricane cleanup. I had to get it done when I took office on January 20th, and I did. I hope the great people of North Carolina remember how bad Roy Cooper was as a governor, especially on crime. Michael Watley will be a fantastic senator, and he led the great Republican Party to victory in 2024. Michael will be a great senator, one of the very best, and we agree here on the right side of history as the Democrats continue their shenanigans and their funding wars with the TSA and cut number 9, making it difficult at America's airports. The crazed Democrats are not allowing TSA agents to get paid. The deal was made a long time ago, and they broke it in order to get money for sanctuary cities and illegal aliens, many of them hardened criminals. Now, the radical left Democrats are truly hopeless as we continue to have hope here at the network and hope in our overall optimism and outlook for the country. But some sad news today in cut number 10, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, first female chief of staff for any president. She's just incredible. The president saying a great person and one of the strongest people I know, but unfortunately has been diagnosed with early stage breast cancer and has decided to take on this challenge immediately as opposed to waiting. She has a fantastic medical team, and her prognosis is excellent. During the treatment period, she'll be spending virtually full time at the White House, which makes me as president very happy. Her strength and commitment to continue doing the job she loves and does so well while undergoing treatment tells you everything you need to know about her. Susie is one of my closest and most important advisors, is tough and deeply committed to serving the American people. She will soon be better than ever. Melania and I are with her every way. We look forward to working with Susie on the many big and wonderful things that are happening for the benefit of our country. That's signed by the President of the United States. 1 in 8 women in our country will face this at some point in their lives, and I, as a cancer survivor, know that the C word can sound relatively scary, so our thoughts and prayers are with someone who's been really the backbone and the apparatus of this MAGA movement, not only on the campaign trail, but winning and securing that second term and then also directing the protocol in the White House. It's a big job, and many people refer to the Chief of Staff role as the most influential and powerful person in Washington, D.C. She does it with grace. She does it with fortitude. She's beyond humble, and we are going to be praying every step of the way with Susie as she gets this cancer out of the way and head on and strong at the beginning. Early detection, so crucial, and we encourage those to always be mindful of that in this great country of ours. Number 11, James Madison, that fourth president we mentioned earlier, celebrating him today as the press secretary on True Social, Caroline Levitt, the superstar. Today we celebrate the birthday of President James Madison, the father of our Constitution and intellectual architect of the American founding, whose wisdom and commitment to common good breathed life into our republic 250 years ago, quoting President Trump today on this March 16th. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. 10% off right now of life-saving medications. In fact, 300 plus of ivermectin, mebendazole, antibiotics, hydrochloroquine, mebendazole, antivirals, medications that are essential, including those emergency medical kits. This is the pharmacy that wants to put your family first. They want you to have that right to try. They believe in most favored nation status, and they want to get off-label generics, affordable ones, right there to your door with no hassle. If you don't have insurance for whatever reason, again, no red tape, no bureaucracy, simply a pharmaceutical note that a U.S. licensed doctor on the other end reviews and sends right back to your door at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, leading the way for discounted generics. If you value convenience, this is really your go-to. And again, during this cold and flu season, smart to have things like nasal spray to Tamiflu, to those over-the-counters that sometimes your pharmacy might run out of or simply not prescribe. They're there to help you from the free Sunshine State of Florida, taking care of the whole country. It's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10 for 10% off right now. We'd also like to thank covepure.com/RSBN, protecting what matters most. I love this machine. It's the best in the reverse osmosis space, and I'll tell you why. If you're renting, you don't have to drill holes into the sink system or have a plumber come over. What you see is what you get. It's no larger than that coffee machine you have on your counter right there. Also, if you are a tea drinker and you have to wait to steep the water on the stove, it takes longer than anticipated, gets hotter than anticipated. Well, in a matter of moments, you can change the temperature from cold to lukewarm to hot, again, very quickly, and you have it instantly, in fact. This reverse osmosis machine leading the way to remove 99.9% of the contaminants in the tap water. We're talking PFAs to microplastics, agricultural runoff, fluoride, and even medications that might go flushing down the toilet but not fully taken out of the water treatment center. So I can't think of anything more disgusting than unpure or impure water. Drink pure, live pure. covepure.com/RSBN, $250 off right now on this reverse osmosis machine, making a massive difference. What's also important if you have kids at home, did you know that children, they found in a study, lose 2 or more points in their IQ if they're drinking regularly from the tap? We know all the COVID learning loss that happened. We cannot afford any more as a nation as a result of literal poisoning. So make sure you're protecting you and yours at home. covepure.com/RSBN, $250 off right now. As we're getting to the bottom of the hour, moments from now, the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States at that signing ceremony there at the White House. With cut number 12, a reminder of Operation Epic Fury now into 16 days, what the objectives here are for the United States military and for President Trump's foreign policy.
We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans.
Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces.
We continue to start working on and going deeper into Iran's military and industrial base in order to prevent the regime from being able to attack Americans, our interests, and our partners for years to come and project power outside their borders. This means servicing production facilities, research and development sites, and infrastructure.
We will destroy their ability to sponsor terrorism, by the way.
Elimination of their advocacy and support for proxies, which is destabilizing the entire Middle East.
Now, in the midst of this crisis overseas that has really decimated Iran and ultimately making America safer than before, we have Democrats in Washington, sadly, that are ignoring the Save America Act, which most Democrat voters want, including Republican and independent and third party. But they are literally holding up DHS in a shutdown, part due of what took place late last year. They're leaving TSA agents unpaid as these brave TSA agents help secure the skies. Democrats admitting they are very serene about keeping our Department of Homeland Security closed. As travel is disrupted nationwide, wait times at airports hitting 4 hours, and our brave men and women of the TSA being forced to work without pay. Democrats declaring they are at peace with the hardships of their political shutdown, what it has created, and as our TSA agents' livelihoods hang in the balance for 26 plus days as that continues to happen. Now, holding TSA officers hostage for political purposes is irresponsible and dangerous, according to the White House, and I think according to most of you at home. Their work is critical to protecting our homeland and national security. Across the nation's airports, TSA officers are still protecting American passengers from bomb threats, drugs, concealed weapons, and other dangerous contraband items despite zero pay. And perhaps that's why we have some gloomy weather in Washington. Now, I'll bite all the comedy aside. Last year alone, TSA detected nearly 11,500 dangerous or prohibited items, confiscated 6,669 firearms, seized 2,190 drugs and other contraband items, removing 577 concealed knives, razor blades, and other concealed weapons, and fielded 313 bomb threats. And the one we saw most recently, there on the tarmac at Hartsfield-Jackson, the busiest airport in the world, in fact, there in Atlanta, Georgia, on a Southwest flight that was from Nashville, Tennessee at BNA en route to FLL, Fort Lauderdale International, with a bomb threat made on board. Now, Democrats have disgustingly forced TSA employees to work without pay now 3 times in 6 months. These fed-up agents are leaving the force in droves, with over 300 agents quitting in the last 3 weeks alone. Now, as Americans and TSA officers pay the price for Democrats' sick political games, it's time for the Democrats to fund DHS so that TSA officers can be paid for their critical work, protecting American travelers each and every day. It's a thankless job at times and a frustrating job at times. And America's lawmakers should be helping to fund that to make sure we keep the friendly skies just that, friendly and safe to travel domestically and abroad. The Vice President's office releasing the celebrations for tomorrow. J.D. Vance to host a breakfast with the Irish delegation on St. Patrick's Day on Tuesday, March 17th. The Vice President and Second Lady will host the leaders of the great Emerald Isle of Ireland, Michael Martin and his wife, Mrs. Mary Martin, in a tradition where the Prime Minister comes over for many celebrations. Sometimes the President or the Vice President will be over there in Ireland for celebrations, but to recognize what our two nations have done In conjunction for countless years now, so many Irish Americans and so many Irish around the world that have really shaped Western civilization. They will get together for a St. Patrick's Day breakfast at the Vice President's residence. Both the Vice President, the Prime Minister delivering remarks, and the breakfast will celebrate the enduring ties between the United States and Ireland's significant cultural contributions to the United States. Truly one of my most favorite celebrations and time of year in the middle of March prior to March Madness. And the March Madness comes in a different form, of course, with Democrats trying to hijack this American government. We'll see in moments President Trump and the Vice President J.D. Vance with a signing ceremony there at the White House. In the meantime, we'll take a quick commercial break for sponsors. Stick with us here as we zoom in there on the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interviewed the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
News outlets out there, and CNN lying to undermine Operation Epic Fury's crushing success. We know that the Iranian Navy has been destroyed, that American and Israeli forces, along with coalition and allies alike from NATO, controlling the skies over Iran and the Gulf and Arab states in full conjunction with Western operations, as we've seen the ballistic and cluster bombs being sent out by Iran, really in a dastardly way of trying to uphold what's left of its Iranian Republican Guard, the Ayatollah, and also the mullahs that have tried to hijack the region and threaten the world with 12 dozen, or at least a dozen proxies throughout the world. We've seen the form of Hamas, the form of Hezbollah, amongst others. As fake news CNN at it again, while the United States forces deliver crushing blows to obliterate Iran's terrorist regime, CNN's hack journalists are peddling Democrat-sourced fiction in order to paint a different picture, undermining our decisive victories in Operation Epic Fury. CNN alleging the Pentagon did and the National Security Council did not plan for Iran's willingness to close the Strait of Hormuz. That was wrong, as Press Secretary Caroline Levitt mentioned and made crystal clear last week. The military has planned for this exact contingency for decades. Operation Epic Fury is deliberately designed to annihilate Iran's navy, its launch capabilities, its missile drones, precisely to eliminate any and all meaningful threats to global shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz. And thanks to President Trump's commitment to energy dominance, America is fully prepared to crush short-term disruption and emerge stronger than ever before. Now, CNN further alleged that top Trump officials acknowledged this to lawmakers in a classified briefing, but that was wrong again. Actual briefing participants torched this lie. Senator Tom Cotton, As chairman of the Intelligence Committee, let me make clear whoever leaked this lie, CNN should be doing some fact checking. The United States has planned for Iran to try to close the Strait of Hormuz for decades. Senator Tim Sheehy, stating, "I received a classified briefing from the administration," is categorically false that they did not plan for Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. Lawmakers and national security officials have known for years that this was Iran's plan once their backs were against the wall. Under President Trump's bold and resolute leadership, Operation Epic Fury continues to advance its clear objectives, destroying Iran's ballistic missile arsenal and production capacity, also obliterating its navy, severing its support for terrorist proxies, and ensuring the regime can never threaten the free world with nuclear weapons once again. No amount of CNN hackery will change that. And now to Trump's energy triumph that's happening here and abroad. The White House releasing President Trump's relentless pursuit of American energy dominance has prepared the U.S. and its allies for the current troubles in the Persian Gulf. Kimberly Strassel actually writing an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal to quote some of that. The Democratic media complex seems determined to get everything wrong about Iran through few efforts compare with this week's work to tag the Trump administration with a global energy crisis. Not only is this uninformed and overdone, the sudden concern over energy security comes about 3 years late. The Undermine America crowd describes Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz as an oil shock that is spiraling, chaotic, and the worst in history. It seems to have evaded this crew that Iran's bombardment of peaceful trading vessels is yet more justification for U.S. strikes. Now, Iran's been using energy threats to manipulate geopolitics for decades and won't stop until it's fully defanged. But they are blaming the administration. Of course they are. In particular, Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, whom Politico described as the vaunted team in danger of fumbling the biggest energy crisis of Donald Trump's second term. Now, the go-to quote comes from Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, who ranted that the Strait of Hormuz has no plan, which is unforgivable because this part of the disaster was 100% foreseeable, according to the Connecticut senator. But let's talk about plans. The United States was finally in a position to disarm Iran is largely thanks to a plan Mr. Trump initiated in his first term to gain energy independence. Unlike his predecessors, focusing on drill baby drill and doing it right here at home, as he said, the most clean, beautiful coal and natural gas and that golden oil right under our feet here in America. The Trump policies turbocharged a shale revolution that made the United States a net exporter of petroleum products and the world's largest exporter of natural gas. Alongside was Mr. Trump's plan to foster economic and security ties in the region against shared threats like Iran via deals like the Abraham Accords. We are no longer hostage to the Middle East fossil fuel threats, which gives us room to weather the temporary Hormuz disruption. So something that this administration clearly has been working towards way ahead of time, as in Operation Epic Fury, decisive American power crushing the enemy and really giving a chance for Iranian citizens to take their government. With this terror regime having caused havoc on the world for 47 years, President Trump's unwavering leadership and the United States Armed Forces are executing Operation Epic Fury with overwhelming power, lethal precision, and unbreakable resolve. From the opening hours of this historic campaign, the objectives were clear: obliterate Iran's ballistic missile arsenal and production capacity, annihilating its navy, severing its support for terrorist proxies, and ensuring the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism will never acquire a nuclear weapon. Now, these objectives have remained unchanged, unambiguous, and consistent since the operation began, with President Trump stating on March 9th, "Our objectives are clear. First, we're going to destroy Iran's missile capabilities and their capacity to produce brand new ones. Pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we are ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders." Also on March 2nd, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, stating, "Whatever happens with the regime in one form or another, it's incidental to the president's primary objective here, which is to make sure that the Iranian terrorist regime does not build a nuclear bomb." Also on the same day, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, "The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy." That is the clear objective of this mission. On March 3rd, the next day, U.S. Central Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, "Our military in the Middle East is undertaking an unprecedented operation to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten Americans as they've been doing for nearly half a century." Undersecretary of War for Policy Elbridge Colby on March 3rd stating, "I think I can lay out once again the objectives of this military operation and its campaign, which are focused on addressing the ability of the Islamic Republic to protect military power." That's primarily the missile forces and the obviously growing and posed threat by the regime, as well as the ability to produce that, and then the Iranian Navy. Also, Secretary Rubio on March 3rd, "Our objectives have remained as they've been identified from the very beginning, as the president laid out clearly yesterday. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon and will not allow Iran to hide behind the immunity of a massive short-term ballistic missile inventory or the ability to make them or launch them, as well as the destruction of their Navy." Also, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth making it clear on March 4th, "The mission is laser focus. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and the facilities that produce them, annihilate its Navy and its critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to these weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb." Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, "The operation was again launched with clear military objectives designed to dismantle Iran's ability to project power outside of its own borders, both today and in the future. First, targeting and ultimately eliminating the ballistic threat, the missile systems that prevent them from threatening United States forces, our partners, and interests in the region. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy and degrading its capacity and its capability and its ability to conduct operations. Third, ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability." Also, Press Secretary Caroline Levitt, the superstar, reiterating that on March 4th. At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, which was launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on what the United States military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one is to destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raise their missile industry to the ground. Now, number two, annihilate the Iranian regime's Navy. Number three, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain the bomb. Admiral Cooper on March 5th. "We will systematically dismantle Iran's missile production capability for the future, and that's absolutely in progress." Then Secretary Rubio on March 9th. "It is important to continue to remind the American people of why it is that the greatest military in the history of the world is engaged in this specific operation. It's to destroy the ability of this regime to launch missiles, both by destroying their missiles and their launchers, destroying the factories that make these missiles, and destroying their Navy." Secretary Hegseth the following day on March 10th, Our objectives straightforward. We are executing them with ruthless precision, one that will destroy their missile stockpiles, their missile launchers, and their defense industrial base. Missiles and their ability to make them. 2, destroy their navy. And 3, permanently deny Iran nuclear weapons forever. General Kane also stating that these military objectives remain on these 3 focused points. So the message has been clear, the mission has been clear, and those objectives have been continually met even now to March 16th, as we're moments away from the signing with the president and the vice president. We'll take a quick commercial break for sponsors here at the right side of history. Do not change that dial, as we will take you over to the White House moments from now.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. The Office of Communications at the White House sharing Senator Markwayne Mullen's nomination for DHS Secretary, drawing bipartisan acclaim. President Trump's nomination of Markwayne Mullen to serve as the next Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, earning strong bipartisan praise from lawmakers, tribal leaders, law enforcement organizations, and industry groups and other prominent voices. A proven champion of border security and a fierce defender of American sovereignty, and a pragmatic leader with deep experience tackling national security threats, Senator Mullen is exactly the right person to build up the department's record-setting successes in protecting the homeland of President Donald Trump and his leadership here at home. Here's what they're saying. Senate Majority Leader John Barrasso of the great state of Wyoming. My friend, Senator Mullen is a great senator, a key team member of the whip system, and he will be exceptional as the next Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and will work closely with President Trump to make America safer. As the whip, I will work to confirm him quickly. Senator Marsha Blackburn of the volunteer state of Tennessee, the next governor as well. Congratulations to my friend and colleague, Senator Mullen, on his nomination. Americans sent President Trump back to the White House to clean up the mess made by Joe Biden. And I have every confidence Markwayne will build on Secretary Noam's great work to make our nation safer. I look forward to supporting the confirmation in the Senate. Also, Senator John Boozman of Montana, the Department of Homeland Security, has a vital mission to protect Americans from threats and provide relief in the wake of natural disasters. Each day it's shut down only compounds unacceptable risk. So I urge my Democrat colleagues to end this dangerous gamesmanship. Also, Senator Katie Britt, one of our favorites from the Yellowhammer State right here in Alabama. I'm excited to congratulate my friend and colleague, Senator Mullen, on his nomination and look forward to supporting him in the process. I know him from working alongside the many years that he is up for the job and will carry out President Trump's agenda to safeguard our homeland and oversee critical agencies like ICE and CBP, FEMA, TSA, CISA, Secret Service, and much, much more. He will be an incredible Secretary of Homeland Security, and yes, that department covers many facets of the federal bureaucracy, especially when it comes to law enforcement. Now, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, the Big Easy. Congratulations to my good friend and colleague at Markwayne Mullen on being selected as President Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Securing the border is one of President Trump's greatest achievements. I look forward to working with him to continue that success and ensure that FEMA delivers Louisiana families for the better. Senator John Cornyn of the great Lone Star State in quite a re-election battle himself, from securing our southern border to responding to natural disasters and safeguarding our communities against all threats. DHS governance is important and cannot be overstated. That's why Senator Mullen will continue to implement President Trump's successful border strategy and enforcement policies. I look forward to supporting his nomination to lead this vital agency. An outgoing senator from the Hawkeye state of Iowa, Senator Joni Ernst, under President Trump's America First agenda, Americans have the most secure border in history. I've loved serving alongside Markwayne in the Senate. He is a true leader, and I'm confident in his ability to keep our homeland safe as the DHS Secretary. Senator John Fetterman, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, really the only common sense, truly liberal Democrat member, is a big fan of Markwayne as well, stating that as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, plus ranking member of the Subcommittee on Border Security, I'm not sure how many fellow Democrats will support my colleague Senator Mullen as the next DHS Secretary, but I am I. He is going to vote in favor, a big resounding yes from Senator Fetterman of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That beautiful Palmetto State, Senator Lindsey Graham, stating President Trump could not have chosen a better candidate to be Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security than Senator Markwayne Mullen. Markwayne understands the enemies we face, and he is intimately involved in dealing with the threats against our homeland in the public and private sectors. He is one of the most knowledgeable people I know regarding how to protect America. And Markwayne is an outstanding choice, and I hope he gets the overwhelmingly bipartisan vote that he deserves. He is one of the most prepared people President Trump could have picked for the role. I know he will hit the ground running on day one. And to join him in that endorsement, Senator Bill Hagerty of the volunteer state of Tennessee. Once again, President Trump making a fantastic choice in Senator Mullen's nomination to be the next Secretary of DHS. I've had the privilege of serving with Markwayne in the Senate for the past 3 years, and he is committed to advancing President Trump's agenda. And he has my full confidence that he will continue building on the progress this administration has made to secure the southern border and ultimately to keep America safe. I look forward to voting in favor of his confirmation in short order. Senator John Hoeven stating, I've worked with Senator Markwayne Mullen now in the Senate, and I believe he is a good candidate to lead the Department of Homeland Security on this very important mission to ensure the United States is safe and secure with its borders. And Secretary Noam has played an important role in this administration stopping illegal immigration. I look forward to working with Senator Mullen in this new role, and that begins with getting him confirmed. Senator Ron Johnson of the great state of Wisconsin, the Badger State, had an excellent meeting with Senator Mullen about this nomination, his vision for the future of the Department of Homeland Security. I look forward to supporting his nomination. Senator John Kennedy of the great state of Louisiana. Senator Markwayne Mullen is smart, tough, and he's tough as a pine knot, in fact. As we know, Senator Kennedy has a lot of those funny isms and jokes and really telling truth through comedy on Capitol Hill. He will do a great job as the new Secretary of DHS. His fellow senator out of the great state of Oklahoma, Senator James Lankford, stating that Senator Mullen will make a fantastic Secretary of Homeland Security. with the most secure border in years. Now is the time to build on its progress, continuing strengthening the progress that has been made for the American people. Unfortunately, in Oklahoma, we understand all too well the impact of natural disasters, and we also know FEMA must be ready to respond quickly and effectively when Americans need them most. FEMA is ready to reform, and Markwayne Mullen will be strong and a leader in turning the agency in the right direction, ensuring it works for the Americans who depend on it during times of crisis. I look forward to working with my good friend and soon-to-be Secretary Mullen as he leads DHS and keeps Americans safe. Senator Cynthia Loomis of Wyoming. Congratulations to my longtime colleague Markwayne Mullen on his nomination to lead DHS. I have no doubt he will continue the good work of President Trump's agenda while keeping America and our borders secure. He'll be a strong and effective leader for this important agency. Also, Senator Roger Marshall out of Kansas. Congratulations to my friend and colleague Markwayne Mullen on his nomination. He will carry out President Trump's agenda on the border and the homeland, strengthening these agencies that protect the American people. Look forward to supporting his confirmation. Dave McCormick, the great senator from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. When President Trump took office, he promised to secure the border and keep Americans safe. He delivered on that promise. My Senate colleague, Senator Mullen, has been a strong fighter for that specific mission, and I support his nomination to lead DHS. Senator Ashley Moody, this morning, I had a great meeting with Senator Mullen. Of course, she represents the Free Sunshine State of Florida, and she is proud to support the nomination of Markwayne to be the next Department of Homeland Security Secretary. I look forward to continuing to work together to make our nation stronger and safer. West Virginia's Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Congratulations to my friend Senator Mullen on being President Trump's next choice for DHS Secretary. Markwayne is a strong leader and a tireless advocate for securing our nation and supporting those who keep our communities safe. I look forward to continuing to work together to strengthen our homeland security. Senator Lisa Murkowski, I've got strong respect for the guy, so I think he'll do a good job. Wow, every once in a while you get support from the senator from Alaska. And we also get support right here at the network from great sponsors like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10 for 10% off right now. Ivermectin, mebendazole, antibiotics, hydrochloroquine, maintenance medications, and much, much more. This includes antivirals, also Tamiflu, and emergency medical kits. In fact, over 300 plus essential medications there for you at the online leading allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. They want you to have the right to try. They want you to have most favored nation status. And some pharmacies, sadly, do not prescribe these life-saving medications that you can stock up there in your Madison cabinet or even take on the road with you. So be sure to visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN to give a chance for these off-label generics. You don't need insurance. It's no red tape. It's no bureaucracy. Simply a pharmaceutical note. A U.S. licensed doctor will review your order on the other side and send it right back to your door. Code RSBN10. That's 10% off now with code RSBN10. Scan the QR code there for allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And also a very big thank you to Birch Gold. The dollar is going down. We know that gold going up 700% in the last 2 decades. So diversify your savings with gold. Just text Trump to 989898. It's as easy as that. To get a free info kit on gold, silver, precious metals, we are dear friends with Philip Patrick, great spokesman for this organization. He knows a thing or two. He'll be on this week to detail how important Birch Gold Group is for you and yours, as they've been endorsed by countless big names in the movement. If you text Trump to 989898, you will get not only this free gold guide, but not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for your portfolio, but more tailored to you and your specific needs right now. So diversify with IRA and 401ks and gold and silver and tangible metals standing the test of time. Like President Trump said back in 2015 and 2016, what the hell do you have to lose? He was talking about voting for him. But especially with gold, what do you have to lose in this day and age as the dollar gets weaker, nearly $39 trillion in debt? I would start by diversifying in gold, silver, and tangible metals with the best in the business. It's Birch Gold Group. Text Trump to 989898. The White House showcasing how great a nominee Senator Markwayne Mullen is, with the countless praise from Capitol Hill and the specific chamber in that Senate club of 100 that either they can really like you or dislike you while you're up there on the Hill, but Markwayne Mullen receiving bipartisan praise. Senator Rick Scott, the former governor of the Free Sunshine State of Florida, saying that President Trump was elected to secure our border, also to crack down on sanctuary cities and keep our country safe. I appreciate Secretary Noem's dedication to that mission, and thanks to the president's leadership and her help, incredible progress has been made. I know she will do a fantastic job as special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, and Senator Mullen will do great work continuing this effort to be a strong leader at the Department of Homeland Security. He needs every resource available to get this very important job done, and it's time to end the shutdown and fund the Department of Homeland Security now. Senator Tim Scott, of course, no relation, but from the Palmetto State, Senator Mullen meets the moment. He shares President Trump's urgency about keeping the homeland safe and responding and recovering quickly when natural disasters strike. Senator Tom Tillis of the Tar Heel State, North Carolina, just north of the Palmetto State. Senator Markwayne Mullen is a great guy, a great choice to lead DHS to restore competence and refocus efforts on quickly distributing disaster aid, keeping the border secure, and targeting violent illegal immigrants for deportation. Our very own friend of the network here, Coach Tommy Tuberville, the United States Senator and soon-to-be Governor of Alabama. Congratulations to great American patriot Senator Mullen on being nominated to lead DHS. I've gotten to know Markwayne very well over the past couple of years through his work on the Armed Services Committee and Help Committees as well. He is a full-on America First patriot and will continue President Trump's efforts to keep our border safe and secure. Thank you to Secretary Noem for the strong foundation she has laid. I look forward to continuing the work with her in her new role as envoy for the Shield of the America. Senator Todd Young from the Crossroads of America in Indiana. Senator Mullen is a friend who has spent a lot of time working on issues related to our homeland security and has the trust and confidence of the President of the United States. He will do a great job, has my full support. So that's just some from some senators there on Capitol Hill, a vast majority of them who are big fans of Markwayne Mullen. As we're moments away from the signing ceremony with the President and Vice President on this March 16th, we'll take a quick commercial break for sponsorships. And we will not be going to a commercial break, thank you, Mr. Producer, as we will be truly any moment away now from the White House there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So the main focus right now being Iran. We're 16 days into this conflict. No boots on the ground. That has been the commitment. Of course, President Trump leaves every option on the table. But as I read earlier in the program, the president committed to aerial patrols along with Israel over what really is the size of the state of Alaska. You're talking about a big area in this country in the heart of the Middle East. But their Navy decimated. 6,000 targets hit. A Navy that has been completely destroyed. Karg Island, which has roughly 96% of its oil coming and being distributed from the Iranian regime, hit right there. We'll toss it there live now to the Oval Office.
With all the fraud that's taking place in our country, we have two people that are extremely brilliant and just very talented, and they're going to be put in charge. But I'd like to ask Will, if you would, to give a little description of what we're signing, the executive order, and then I'll ask JD to speak.
Yes, sir. As you stated in your State of the Union address, in light of widespread revelations of fraud in federally funded programs in states like Minnesota and California, This executive order in front of you will establish a new task force aimed at rooting out that fraud, returning potentially billions or tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars to the American taxpayer. This task force will be chaired by the Vice President. The Vice Chairman will be the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, who's with us here as well today. But this is going to launch a whole-of-government approach to rooting out the very serious problem of fraud in federally funded programs around the country.
As an example, you've been seeing it, and seeing it pretty big in Minnesota, $19 billion. But that's only for one little aspect of the fraud. It's $19 billion, and California, as they say, is 10 times worse, and other states are 10. And this is not a Republican-Democrat thing. This is wherever it's taking place. It seems that it's usually in blue states. If it's in a red state, we're going there too. But it seems that it's heavily, heavily, heavily Democrat. And what they've done is so sad. When you look at the Minnesota scam, a lot of it has to do with Somalia. Nobody's calling out anybody, but a lot of it has to do, but it's Somalia and plenty of others. And I believe the governor is complicit. I believe Ilhan Omar is complicit. I believe that your attorney general is complicit. And if they are, you're going to hopefully find out about it, and you're going to have to do what you have to do. If we found half of the fraud that's taking place in this country, and I think you have a chance of doing that, we would have much more than a balanced budget. That's the kind of numbers you're talking about. The theft is incredible. And I think JD will make, and Andrew will make a charge later on that local states should handle nursing homes and all of these things that the federal government shouldn't be involved in. It's too big. The federal government should handle military and a couple of other things. But when it comes to nursing homes, you saw where a young gentleman was going around and knocking on doors, and none of the nursing homes existed, none of the nurseries existed. The money that's being paid out, and the federal government pays for it. When you see all these people coming in illegally into our country, many criminals, many drug dealers, murderers, 11,888 murders, and you look at California, and more come in, and yet they never had money, and yet they pay them. You know why they pay them? Because the federal government is charged with paying. We're not paying them anymore, and I said that. So these two really smart guys are going to be, hopefully it's going to be JD's. This will not be like a Kamala, where she was put in charge of the border, and she never went there, JD, right? You promise?
I promise, sir.
Remember, Kamala was put in charge. She was the border czar. She never went to the border. She never called any of the great Border Patrol. The Border Patrol testified. We never spoke to her in 4 years. That was a disaster. But this is different. This is a different group of people. I think maybe before JD, I'll ask Stephen Miller to say a few words too, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, under President Trump's leadership, as we've seen, the illegal flow across the southern border was stopped completely. But what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia. So as an example, ICE recently asked a group of illegal immigrants that were in detention whether or not they were receiving Medicaid. Half of them raised their hands and volunteered that they were on Medicaid. Just volunteered that. These aren't the ones who are hiding it, right? They also asked illegal aliens how they paid their medical bills, and they said that if they don't have Medicaid, they go to hospitals, they get free care there, and they bill it to the taxpayers. So they aren't paying for any of their own health care in this country. This is one example. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So under President Trump's leadership, and then of course with JD and the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, we're going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I believe, and I know President Trump believes, that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it would be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers to people who don't belong here is the primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you, Mr. President.
First ever. And everyone knows they've been cheating for years. It's the first ever. And it's got to be stopped. I mean, it's got to be stopped. Think of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have anything. They don't have councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother, supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman. And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or somebody is, all right? Because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's bad news, really bad news. She's so bad for our country. Anyway, JD, please say a few words.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important whole of government approach to tackle the fraud problem. And let me just tell one story. One of the things that even before this executive order was signed that we were able to stop under the president's leadership is we saw evidence that in Minneapolis there were Somalis, primarily illegal immigrants, who were defrauding a Medicaid program that was meant to go to autistic children. So they were taking children who were supposed to get benefits, and they were claiming that their kids were actually autistic even though they weren't. And what did this mean? This meant two things. Number one, you had a lot of people getting rich off of the fraud while American citizens got poorer. And the second thing that it meant is that you had autistic kids in Minneapolis, in suburban Minneapolis, who weren't getting benefits they needed because Somali fraudsters were literally stealing out of their pocket. It's got to stop. And unfortunately, that kind of fraud is one example of probably hundreds just within the state of Minneapolis, and then it's repeated and replayed all over the United States of America. When we first started talking about this problem, the president made it very clear he wanted us to take the fraud problem seriously because nobody had until he was president. We started to figure out one big hole that existed is that the agencies of the government weren't actually talking to each other. So Treasury would have evidence of financial fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Justice about it. Health and Human Services had evidence of Medicaid fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Treasury about it. So what this executive order does is force the entire apparatus of the federal government to do two things. Stop the fraud in the American taxpayer and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens and not to fraudsters. Andrew Ferguson will be the vice chair and is going to do a great job. If you're curious what's the difference between the vice chair and the vice chair is going to do all the work, and I'm going to take all the credit. Andrew.
Yeah, look, I mean, millions and millions of Americans pay into these programs every day, and they expect to get something out of it. And this fraud is just siphoning money that millions of Americans pay to fund their hospitals, to fund their daycare centers, into completely fake businesses. It isn't just unfair to all of us as taxpayers who pay for all this. It's particularly unfair to the Americans who need this the most and watch this money leave their hospital, leave their school system, and go out to fraud. And that is why this effort is so important. And I think we've just begun really looking at this, but I think that one of the things we're going to find is that in a lot of these agencies, the previous administration was pretty lax about existing anti-fraud controls, and we're going to expose that too.
I would take the word pretty out. I would change it with unbelievably lax. They weren't, not even lax. Lax isn't a good enough word. The previous administration was fraudulent, okay? And I think that's what you're going to find also. And, you know, we worked so hard, like most favored nations drug prices. For years, people have wanted. We paid the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by far, by 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, more than London would be paying in New York, more than any city in Europe was paying than our cities. We would have a pill that would sell for $10 in Munich, in Germany, would sell for $10, and in New York it would be $130 or whatever. And we worked so hard, and we pulled it off. It's called Most Favored Nations. So now we went from by far the most expensive drugs anywhere in the world, prescription drugs, to the least expensive, and I had to get all the nations to agree, and I don't want to bore you with how I did it, but I did it. Everyone said it was impossible to do, including the drug companies, and we did it. And we worked so hard on it, and we're going to save so much money for the people. Your drug prices are going to be dropping at levels never even, by 50, 60, 70, 80% in some cases, but you work so hard. And then you see them stealing $19 billion. It's like in one pocket, out the other. And I think Andrew and JD, I think they have maybe one of the most important jobs. maybe it could be one of the most important things that we're signing because I really believe that they have an opportunity to do something so good for our country. People talk about balancing budgets. You can't balance a budget when people are stealing $19 billion, and nobody's ever heard of anything like it. We had, I guess, in the same state, you went autism, where 4 or 5 years ago they spent $1 million, and now it's almost $400 million in just a few years. Well, autism didn't go up like that, and even the $1 million was probably a fraud, but it went from $1 million to almost $400 million in just a few years. These are crooked people. They basically said everybody in the state had autism. These are crooked, horrible people. And, I was elected with JD, Make America Great Again. That was it. And we can't have this stuff happening. Right. We have to be respected. And they left. So I'm going to sign this. We'll take some questions, but let me sign this first before I don't forget. Let's see. Before I decide not to, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't forget not to, but maybe I'll decide not to. I would decide not to. If I didn't think they could do the job, I would decide not to. But that'll be a terrible thing. I think they're going to find numbers. Andrew, I think you're going to find numbers that are far higher than you even think. And Andrew came to us. He said, sir, he's read the stories about Minnesota. We know California is many times worse, but Minnesota is terrible. They're all terrible. Those cities are terrible. New York is terrible. What's going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're talking about is just country changing. It's country changing money. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable country where you can lower your taxes substantially for people. And I think you have an opportunity to do it. And I think you two guys are the right guys. If you guys can't do it, we've got a problem. Because nobody else will be able to do it.
Yes, sir.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from our wonderful media. Okay.
Good one.
Here you go. Very important. That's a big deal. We've been working on this very long. Right?
Yes,
Steve,
sir.
right? Will?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation. Why do you suppose then that leaders in recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's taking place? And
because they're crooked. They make money. They gain power. They use it for power. Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block, 100%. They make a deal with the Somalians. They all vote because they're on a gravy train. It's money first, power second. A lot of people say power first. No, it's money first, power second. Do you ever see where like Mercedes? People come over from Somalia. They have no money, and now they're buying Mercedes-Benz cars. Okay, it's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world or something. We're going to find it. And Minnesota is really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general is totally corrupt. Just like the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. She's a highly corrupt person. Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These are corrupt people. And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, we're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
No, it's possible. If they don't do a good job, the country's sort of in trouble. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. 2 questions for the
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second,
Good title.
Second, given
I like
your
it.
past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
Look, JD's been great, but here's the simple thing, and I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody. Peace through strength. But you know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I've called them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching the world. And they're violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the streets. And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the place. But even if there weren't, who's going to do that? Who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have latest in line machine gun, right? And every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, feel very strongly, like I do about wars. And I say, do you think Iran is violent, and do you think their people are violent? Yes, leadership. Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon, which is massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful, because it's depressing. And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. I said, and you don't want to fight war? No, we don't want to fight war. So these are naive people that frankly are stupid. If you believe that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you, because they would use it the only question is within 1 hour if they get it, or 1 day. They will use it, and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They'll start with Israel, but they will blow up. And you got to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were blowing up the people that handle their accounts. They're sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then come after us. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. Because it's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000-pound bomb. So I don't know how they do it, because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not sent this incredible machine times numerous others to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure it. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place. And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that, I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid. So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done, because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weapons, they have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to, because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible thing. I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JD understands better than most, if you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 a.m, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and you see him, 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country. I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I didn't know I'd have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people, in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this military conflict that's taking place in Iran?
Well, they should be thanking me, because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you, but they should be thanking us. Japan gets 95%, China 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea gets a tremendous percentage of their oil and therefore their energy from the Straits, or as they call it, the Strait. And they should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help. There are a couple. We'll be announcing some names soon. There are some that really were right up front. I would announce their name now, other than maybe they'd prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this: it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles. They're down to a small portion of their drones, and we've demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Carg Island, took out every single thing on Carg Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something's going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes. But there are some countries that greatly disappointed me. And I'm the one that got them to pay from 2% to 5% of GDP, NATO. And I get along great with those countries in NATO, but I always said, the problem with NATO is we'll always be there for them, but they'll never be there for us. And when I hear the UK, which was sort of considered the Rolls-Royce of allies, right? Wouldn't you say? They were the oldest, and they were going to be there. And I say it would be really helpful if you'd send over a couple of ships, and if you have some minesweepers, which they do, be very helpful. And the Prime Minister is a nice man. I think he's a very nice guy. He says, well, I'd like to ask my team. I said, you don't have to worry about a team. You don't have a team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make a decision. Well, I have to speak to my people. I said, you don't have to speak to anybody. So it was very disappointing. And then after we obliterated them, destroyed their military, their whole thing, and it became a much safer zone, he said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after we win. I want them before we start. I don't need your aircraft carriers after we've already won. So, those things are very disappointing. And you have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? I've been saying it for a long time. This is the greatest thing to come out of this. We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there. Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country. Some have been very good. 1 or 2 have been great. I'll tell you, the great ones are at the right time. But there have been some that were right up there, Peter. They were right up there. They wanted to do it so much. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that might be their retaliation?
Nobody. No. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site, because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is, and they were going to do that. And it's incredible what we've done. I tell you, the job we've done. Do you know, if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, you would right now, well, Israel would be gone. It would be incinerated. And probably the Middle East likewise. And remember, they have all of those missiles. And I heard they were sending missiles to UAE. I said, that's strange. UAE is like the banker for Iran. They're like the banker. Qatar, their neighbors, they got along okay. Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, Kuwait is getting hit. Bahrain is getting. All these countries are getting hit. There was no expert that would say that was going to happen. It's not a question of like, gee, should you have known? And if we did know, big deal. I mean, we have to do what we have to do. But we hit them so hard like nobody's ever been hit. We hit them very hard. And we've extinguished most of their missiles. We've extinguished most of their drones. We've extinguished most of the places where the missiles and the drones are built. We've fully extinguished 2 layers of leadership and probably a third, if you believe some stories. So we only have one thing, to have a little choke point. And they've used it very well for years, but it doesn't work. But I think this, if some of these countries that we've been good to for years, and maybe more important than that, some of these countries that get 90% and 95% of their energy from Hormuz, the Strait. Hormuz, a famous, wonderful, beautiful place, but you wouldn't want to be necessarily sailing a boat there right now.
I would not.
Okay, you know why? Not because of them, because of us. Because we've taken out their entire Navy. We've taken out every one of their drone, they call it a drone layer, a mine layer. There's specific boats that are meant to put mines on. How would you like to have a nation that has 22 boats where their sole function, they're very different looking boats. You wouldn't want one for your family. They're not pretty. Their sole function is to lift a mine into the water and drop it a certain number of feet down. But they had 22 of them. We've taken out all of them. But you can probably drop them off other boats. So we don't even know. By the way, we don't know that any mines have even been dropped. But the thought that they would scares people that have billion-dollar ships. Yeah, please.
Thank you, President Trump. I'd like to ask the Vice President about his plans to go after possible fraud in California and New York. We know, of course, about Minnesota. And President Trump, first, could I ask you, you said earlier today that the new Supreme Leader, Khomeini, you don't know if he's dead or alive. There are a couple interesting reports about him today. There's one report that he just narrowly escaped death in the first airstrikes by stepping out into his garden. There's another report that he may actually be gay despite leading a theocracy that hangs gay people. How do you determine what's true, and do you have an assessment of this?
Well, so far nobody knows. If you look at his father, he used to give talks a lot, talking about death to America. He'd say death to America all the time. When they say death to America, you should believe them, because that's what they would have. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. But they never had the chance. I never gave them the chance to use it. And other presidents should have done. I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I actually speak to some. I do like some people. It'd be shocking. And he said, I wish I did what you did. Could have done it. Other presidents, somebody should have done it. 47 years this went on. They call Iran the bully of the Middle East. And you could have never had the Abraham Accords. You could never have had peace in the Middle East. Now you're going to have peace. You could never do it with the dark cloud of a nuclear Iran. But Iran is a shell of itself. It's no longer a bully. It's the one that gets bullied. It's a bully that got beat up. We beat the crap out of them. And they deserve that. When you see a soldier walking down the street without his arms, or being helped down the street because he's got no legs, or his face is blown to smithereens with no legs and no arms, those two, no legs, no arms, and a face that got racked. That was done by roadside bombs. That's the favorite weapon of Soleimani, who I killed in my first administration. General Soleimani. Had I not killed him, that was the beginning of their downfall, because had he not gone, it's possible that we would not be this far advanced in destroying Iran, because he was a really good general. He was a vicious, horrible man, but he was a brilliant general. And he was looking to knock out 5 of our military bases at one time. And the man that died with him was his counterpart in Iraq. And they were working together. And they got hit real hard. And if that didn't happen, we would have had a problem. But maybe more importantly than that, he was really the mastermind behind it. And they never found somebody to replace him in terms of the genius. I knocked him out. And that was a big step, knocking him out. But if we didn't get rid of the Obama deal, I terminated it against the wishes of my then Secretary of State. He was no Marco. Against the wishes of a lot of people at the time. You remember that, Peter? A lot of people. Had I not terminated, remember that, Stephen? You remember? They were all going, no, dude, this is not, that deal was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had it 3 years ago, and it would have been used, I would say, 2 to 3 years ago, and it would have been used in the Middle East. And by the way, after they were finished that, they were coming over here. They never got a chance to do it.
I just want to ask you about something very interesting that you've said twice today. That you talked to another former president about the Iran strikes.
I did.
Was it George W. Bush?
No.
Was it Bill Clinton?
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. Because
Barack Obama.
a member of a party, they have Trump derangement syndrome all, but it's somebody that happens to like me, and I like that person who's a smart person. But that person said, I wish I did it. Okay? But I don't want to get into who. Okay. I don't want to get him into trouble. Maybe, hey, you know what? I think you probably know. You know, it's interesting. And maybe he'd be proud. And I could even ask him that, would you like me to reveal your name to Peter at Fox? Well, at least you have high ratings. Your ratings are through the roof, Peter. Congratulations.
Thank you for noticing.
Congratulations.
Can I ask you another question about the war? If Iran, as you say, totally obliterated, got the missiles, got the first 2 rounds of leadership, Air Force gone, Navy gone, can we wrap this war up this week?
Yeah, sure. Good.
Will we?
I don't think so, but it'll be soon. Won't be long. And we're going to have a much safer world when it's wrapped up. It'll be wrapped up soon. We're going to have a much safer world. I had an obligation to do this. I didn't want to, I call it an excursion. I didn't want to make this journey. We had the highest stock market in history. We had low gas prices. Everything was good. And I know exactly, I know what, you're going to do it, and people are going to raise the price of oil, and that's good. But I know that. But that's a very small thing compared to allowing them to have, you want to see a stock market go down? Start letting them hit you with nukes, okay? I think, I said it this morning, I think it's a very small price to pay. And frankly, I thought it was going to go down much more, if you want to know the truth. I assumed that it was going to go down much more, only because people don't understand to a large, it's a big chess game at a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people. They don't get there. You know, when you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people. These are not Jasmine Crockett and her group. These are smart people. These are really smart people, and violent people, and vicious people, and some very nice people. And some are very nice but violent. They turn violent. But you know what? If I didn't do what I did, we would have been hit. Number one, very important, was the termination of Obama's horrible deal. And number two, this beautiful plane hitting them 8 months ago, whatever it was, and taking out their nuclear capacity. That totally threw them for a loop. If they had that bomb at either time, 5 years ago or 7 months ago, if they had that bomb would have been used almost immediately.
Mr. President, 2 questions on domestic policy, bringing it close to home. First of all, the Save America Act. What are you expecting this week when this vote takes place in the U.S. Senate? Will the Vice President's vote be necessary?
I think it's imperative that it gets done. I'm not sure it is. You know, the Democrats have horrible policy. It's just incredible. But they stick together. It's the one thing they do. Their Supreme Court members stick together. Those appointed by a Democrat stick together. If Barack Hussein Obama appoints a member of the Supreme Court, that member never goes against him. And they're proud about it. They say, I don't give a damn if it's good or bad. That man appointed me and I'm never going to let him down. I don't say that's right, wrong. I just say they stick together. Republicans go the opposite way. if Donald Trump appointed me, I'm going to show the world that I can be totally just and I can be independent of Donald Trump. He's not controlling me. And I don't want to control them. I just want to have smart decisions. They gave us a decision on tariffs the other day that won't change tariffs. I can do it a different way. I always knew I could do it a different way. This was a little quicker, a little easier, a little better. But they gave it a decision that could cost this country $500 billion to pay people back. Because now I have to start the tariffs all over again. Very simple. And what happens with the money I've already collected? Why didn't they say, starting from now, go the other way? $500 billion, perhaps. It's so sad. But one thing about the Democrats, they stick together like glue. They impeached me twice for absolutely no reason, unanimously. Fortunately, the Republicans stuck together, and it was something. It was pretty wild. But the Democrats have horrible policy, transgender for everybody, open borders, men playing in women's sports. But the one thing they do have is they stick together, no matter how bad the policy. It's embarrassing to watch them try to defend it. And in a way, I say, as a Republican, in a way, I say, thank goodness they have bad policy, because you'd never beat them. We have something in there now, the Save America Act. Voter ID with a picture, right? That's a 99% issue. Even among Democrats, Democrats poll at 89% on that. And then they have proof of citizenship. And then they have no mail-in ballots. No mail-in ballots. We have no mail-in. You go to California, they send out like 38 million ballots. Some Democrats get 7, 8 ballots. Republicans are a lot of times calling in, where's my ballot? Where's my ballot? They're lucky to get one. Jimmy Carter, probably the greatest thing he ever did. I thought he was a nice man, not a great president, to put it mildly. How did his attack work out in Iran? Not too good. I think ours is slightly better, wouldn't you say? But Jimmy Carter, the one thing he did after he left with Scoop Jackson and some others, they formed a very elite council, a committee that came out and said very strongly, no mail-in ballots, because we're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots like we do. The only country in the whole world. People have tried it. France tried it, and they went away. They're now doing paper ballots, watermark paper, which is very hard to cheat. So when you look at what happens with this country, we really have to fix it. That'll be very popular. The other thing we put in there, just as best of, I call it the best of Trump. We have the 3 things I just said, right? But then I added on no men playing in women's sports, and I added in no transgender surgery, the mutilation of our children. We have no mutilation of our children, no transgender. I think they say that's an 80% issue. I think they're 99% issues, but whether they're 80% or 99%. The problem is we have a couple of Republicans. They shouldn't be allowed. They're horrible people. And they're willing to vote against anything. And we have all the Democrats who vote against it. So I think it hurts the Democrats to vote against it, because I'm going to instruct all the Republicans to say that so-and-so that they're running against voted against the saving of our children from transgender mutilation, right? That's pretty unpopular. They want men and women's sports. That's pretty unpopular. They want voter ID, but the Democrats don't. Everybody wants voter ID. Everybody wants proof of citizenship. And most people don't want mail-in voting because they know it's a fraud. Touches too many hands. I mean, the postman gets it, this one gets it, that one. So these are all issues that are in the 90s to 100. I would say some are virtually 100%. And the interesting thing is they're that way not only with the Republicans. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm talking about they're that way also, most importantly, with the people. The people of our country want voter ID. The people of our country want proof of citizenship. And that includes 88%, 89% of Democrats. And I think the Republicans, Eric Schmidt, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, I speak to so many of them, they all want it. I hope John Thune can get it across the line. He's trying. I mean, he told me this morning, I spoke to him, he's trying. I think it'll be a very, very bad thing for our country if they don't. We're just asking for basic things. Think of it. You can't have voter ID. Do you know in California, if you ask a person to show their identification, they have the right to put you in jail. If you're an official and you say, may I please see your identification, you're subject to going to jail. That's how crazy it's gotten. With a low IQ person, you know, because Gavin Newsom has admitted that he has learning disabilities. Honestly, I'm all for people with learning disabilities, but not for my president. I think a president should not have learning disabilities, okay? And I know it's highly controversial to say such a horrible thing. The President of the United States, Gavin Newsom, admitted that he has learning disabilities, dyslexia, everything about him is dumb. But then he looked at the audience and said, but I'm smarter than you, or something like that. That was pretty stupid. So now on top of everything else, I call him a racist because it happened to be a black audience. I will tell you this. I think it was the worst interview I've ever seen of any human being in my life, okay? Anybody else have any questions?
Will it be necessary to use even a limited ground force to secure whatever nuclear material remains in Iran as part of that threat?
Yeah.
And secondly, have you made a decision?
You mean to go in and get it?
Yes, sir.
Why would I tell you a thing like that?
And secondly,
you know, I can't say to reporters, sir, will you attack Carg Island? Will you occupy Carg? They ask me these questions. And I don't want to be mean, but they're stupid questions. If any president answered those questions, they shouldn't be president.
And secondly, sir, do you still plan to travel to Beijing at the end of this?
I don't know. We're working on that right now. We're speaking to China. I'd love to, but because of the war, I want to be here. I have to be here, I feel. And so we've requested that we delay it a month or so. And I'm looking forward to being with them. We have a very good relationship. But because of the war, there's no tricks to it either. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm waiting. It's very simple. We got a war going on. I think it's important that I be here. You know? So it could be that we delay it a little bit. Not much. Peter?
When you say Cuba is next.
Cuba.
Is Cuba, whatever you do with the military there, it seems like something. Will that look more like Iran or Venezuela?
Can't tell you that. I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money, they have no oil, they have no nothing. They have nice land. They have nice landscape, you know. It's a beautiful island. I think they have great people. You know, I know so many people from Cuba that were treated terribly and they're over here and they became rich. They're very entrepreneurial people, very smart. I know a lot from Florida especially. There's so many people. A friend of mine started over with nothing. He's now the largest owner of gas stations in the country and stuff. I mean, Cuban. I also know, I was just with a fantastic person who's Cuban and made a fortune in sugar. You know, Fanjul family, right? And this family wants to go back to Cuba to visit it. They haven't been back in like 50 years or something. They largely come from Cuba. And we'll see what happens. They were asking me about that. They want to go back. Not only Fanjul, a lot of Cubans have said, oh boy, would they love to go back. I think Cuba, I don't know, it's in its own way, for tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island, great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's see the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. Castro was a very violent leader. His brother's a very violent leader. Extremely violent. That's how they governed. They governed with violence. But a lot of people would like to go back. Okay, one more question.
A quick question on fraud for Vice President Vance. Mr. Vice President, you announced a couple of weeks ago in the EEOB that the administration would be halting Medicaid payments to Minnesota until the state decided to take pervasive steps to root out fraud. Do you have an update to that specific situation? Do you think that could be a model moving forward for the task force for states that won't cooperate?
So I don't have an update there. Dr. Oz is looking to it, trying to work with the authorities in Minnesota to try to figure that situation out. But yeah, I mean, I think there are two obvious tools that we have to stop the fraud that's happening against the American people. One is that when we see evidence of fraud, we stop the payments. Pretty simple, right? We know that the American people are being defrauded. Let's try to stop the payments and ensure that whoever's making these payments is actually complying with some basic due diligence and making sure that payments are going to the right place. I think the second tool, of course, we have, as the President mentioned, is we have law enforcement options. We know that some of this fraud is just bad. Some of it's criminal. We know that people are intentionally trying to defraud the American people. It's not just in Minnesota, it's all across the country.
99% is criminal.
Yes, sir. So this is one of the reasons why DOJ is such an important part of this, is because we have to make sure that where we see criminal conduct, we actually prosecute it. And the President's talked about this a lot in the past. I don't need to repeat it, but it's worth noting that so many times when we find people engaged in really, really bad conduct, you know, the local judge or the local grand jury tries to stop it. One of the cool things about what we're doing is we're trying to take some innovative steps to ensure that when we find criminal fraud, we can actually prosecute it all the way to the end.
Mr. President,
She wanted one question. She's over here, and you guys are over there. Where's your main camera? Is it this one? Which one is the main camera? Okay, good. Nice center, good. I thought it was that one.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mary Barrett with Daily Wire, not CNN. We just wanted to ask about DHS, still not funded, but we reported earlier today that 80% of the primary task force that focuses on investigating terrorism is working without pay. So should that impact Democrats' decision to
The
fund
Democrats aren't paying. The Democrats, we have a deal. They just said we're not going to pay. We're not going to do anything, and it's terrible. The Democrats are terrible. You know, it'd be nice to get along, but for years this has been going on, not just with me. For years it's been going on. Different ideology, but also different tactics. Here we are, we're fighting big battles with a very tough enemy and winning nicely. And we're not allowed to have security in our country. It's crazy. The Democrats don't want to pay. These are bad people. These are not people that love our country, I can tell you that. Very sick people. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Press.
Thank you.
And during that question and answer session in the Oval Office there, as you heard from Cuba and Pierre Ducey's question, Cuba is so important right now. Breaking news that, according to Reuters, Cuba's national electric grid collapsed today, this Monday, March 16th, and the country's grid operator saying it's leaving 10 million people without power amid a U.S. imposed oil blockade, of course, of that island. So we'll be watching that story as it develops. Thank you to the wonderful sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, especially you, the viewers. It's all viewer supported here at RSBN. RSBNetwork.com/donate. That's the place to go. You can also send a check or money order into 1550 Opal Lake Road, Suite 6, Box 34. It's the loveliest village on the plains. It's Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550 Opal Lake Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history, as we are your #1 source for political events right here at home. And with our live desk and rally network, we want to bring you unbridled access to your 45th and 47th President of the United States, the 50th Vice President, the 119th Congress, of course, the First and Second Ladies, who do so much wonderful work domestically and abroad. The government you put into place back in 2024, all in real time as we gear up for midterms unlike any other in 2026. It's all about public safety. It's all about domestic tranquility. as today we celebrate James Madison's birthday on what would have been his 275th. We also thank a dear friend of ours at mypillow.com/RSBN, the mattress and topper sale, as low as $49.99 plus free shipping on the entire order. Promo code RSBN. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network. 2,000 different options, all made in America. Right up there in the great state of Minnesota as that master marketer, as President Trump has put it, throws his hat in the ring to serve the good people as governor of Minnesota. We're grateful for Mike Lindell and our partnership here. And those My Slippers, the My Coffee, got some right here. It always smells good, even in the late afternoon into the early evening. And the My Pillow 1.0, those Giza Dream Sheets, the 2.0, and all of the patriotic and Christian themes there at his great studios, factories, and the wonderful team he has put together in the great state of Minnesota. Again, thank you to Mike Lindell. The mattress and topper sale, $99.99, 800-836-7566. Call today. Do not delay. You can find 2,000 plus options there at mypillow.com/RSBN. Next on the calendar is tomorrow, primary day in the Prairie State of Illinois. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Get out there and vote in case you did not vote early, as today they're in the waning hours of voting early as well. I've made it no secret that I am fully supporting my total and complete endorsement to Sean Noonan in DuPage County. He will make an outstanding sheriff. Please like, share, and subscribe to Sean Noonan running for sheriff. His opponent claims he does not have any experience. Nothing could be further from the truth, but you know how Chicagoland politics goes. Municipal elections, it's like a bloodbath out there just west of the city of Big Shoulders. So get out there and vote and make sure you have a good candidate to take on Governor J.B. Pritzker come the fall. So we're just starting off those midterm elections on the ground inside the federal city and outside of it in your neck of the woods as the president and vice president signing off in that ceremony in the Oval Office. It's 5:05 on the East Coast, 2:05 on that glorious West Coast. For all of my colleagues here on the right side of history, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. RSBNetwork.com/newsletter for all of the great writings here and staying on top of the topics and the hot button issues here at home and abroad. But always tune in every single day for your number one source for political events right here in America. For all my colleagues on the right side of history, may God bless you on this Monday, March 16th. I'm Robert McNeely. We will see you again tomorrow.